So I just wanted to go through what I think the best team you should require to battle in stage 1, then stage 2 and stage 3. So this will be the best team I recommend, but also play with the minimum requirement that I think you'll need. Not going to go through stage 0 just because very easy and it's free to go to, so we don't need to worry about losing or wasted runs. We've got our squad and let's go to stage 1. So real quick, our squad just consists of Urkers and Grokkos. We've just got the 3 Grokkos for the 3 Bulwark buff, and you can see they're all different affinities. This is just so that hyper isn't an issue. We're too heavy on one affinity, there's certain counters that the enemy team will just go hyper. We've then got the Dokers. This is just for 3 fighter, and we could stack those. Out of all the damage dealing Illuvials, they're probably the best. You could go the Volantes, the rogues, because they might fit in a team later, but I'll just show you with the Dokers. Speaking of rogues, we want to be catching all the rogues that we can. In stage 1, you'll see in stage 2 we're going to be using these rogues. You'll still probably just catch everything. If you're trying to rush through and prioritize the Illuvials for stage 2, it's these rogues. So you can see the road is there. We're going to be catching those and this Tyro. But this will make more sense once we look at the stage 2 team. Stage 1 and 2, we're not too worried about these encounter mods, but in stage 3 we definitely will be. We're just going to place our 3 Grokkos down, and I'm just going to use the 3 Dokers just to try highlight how strong the team is without using a full squad. And we're not going to use the weapons either, just because I don't have a stage 1, but you would have a stage 1 weapon, which would round off one of these affinities. So if it's the earth sword, you would get 3 earth, which will help a lot. So we're just going to do something like this. We've got our 3 bulwarks, and again, you could just stack the 2 extra Dokers, or maybe you would have 2 Volantes. Having the 2 Volantes probably be best option because it gives you the 2 rogue buff and the potential you might use the Volantes in the next stage team. But for now, I'm just showing you a slightly weaker team just to highlight the minimum strength, and if you have the 8 Illuvials, again, you'll be much more comfortable. So we'll start that up. And even with a stage 2 here, you can see they're level 20. So if you find a stage 2 in the enemy team, they're going to be a bit stronger, and we can still win this very comfortably with just the 6 Illuvials and not rounding out any of these affinities. It should also say level, so the one thing there is my lesser Grokkos are leveled a bit. It didn't come into play because my Dokers just destroyed everything anyway, but the Dokers were very low level. At this stage, you could have easily leveled to a minimum, level 10 to 20 is quite easy. You can see how many levels I got just from that one encounter on these lower level Dokers. So you would gain a lot of strength with that as well. So you would have 8 Illuvials, probably more levels. More importantly, the Dokers would be leveled, and you would have the ranger weapon as well. Okay, we're in stage 2, and I'll just show you the team that I'm using. The idea behind this team is not only it's strong, but it's also leveling what we want to level to get our team for stage 3. You'll notice there's some tier 3 Illuvials here. You'll pick those up in stage 1 and stage 2, but they're going to be super important for that stage 3 run anyway. If you don't have these yet, you can still fill this team with duplicates of all of these, and you shouldn't have any issues, especially once you start leveling these. All these ones that I'm using are low level, and you can gain levels really fast, so you should be able to compensate with levels, and also tier 0 consumables will also make this team quite a lot stronger. You're worried about losing an encounter, but let's jump into an encounter. There's a Heidi there, so this is exactly what we would want to be catching, and we do need 3 of them because it's eventually going to evolve into the Crunk for the stage 3 run, which again we'll see later. Again, we're not too worried about the encounter mods. We can't really control this because we can't see it by scanning. We just have to deal with it as we come into the encounter. But we're chucking the Heidi down at the front, or any bulwark you're using at that stage. 2 rotors will start on this side. This encounter is super easy, so I won't even need to use the whole team, but I'll show you the whole team anyway. So we've got the 2 rotors. This Tyro is eventually going to be a Revenant at stage 2, and so is the Vermilion. So that's why we're leveling those. Our stage 3 team is going to have Revenant. These rotors are going to go into Dust and then eventually Slayer, which we'll have in stage 3. The other Dust unit is going to be the Winx, which we'll need the stage 2 version of. And then we have the 2 Predators. So as we're leveling these, we'll need to eventually catch 3 Winxes, 3 of these and 3 of these to get to stage 2. Same with the Heidi, the Vermilion and the Tyro. They're all only going to stage 2. Whereas the rotors, we're going to need at least 9 of them, assuming we don't catch a stage 2 already, and we're probably going to need them to be all the way to the stage 3 gyro for our stage 3 team. So that's why I've got 2 of these in, because they require a bit more leveling. If you want you could round the team off with the ranger weapon for 3 fire. We don't really need that at all though, so I'll just take that off. And you can just have the stage 1, but let's start that up. This is going to be overkill, but if the enemy team is a lot stronger than this one, you could see how this team would be completely fine. And again, if you're worried about losing, just use these tier 0 gumbo drops, which you can farm for free in the tier 0 runs. Just chuck these on all the rogues. You can see how much levels we gain just from that one encounter, and that gives you an idea how quickly you could get stronger. You know, within one run, you could gain a lot of experience because these encounters don't cost any energy. You will get fatigued after a certain amount of counters, but you can still win rounds even if you're fatigued. So that's the team for stage 2. Now let's go to stage 3 and see what the evolved version of this team looks like. Real quick guys, if you found any of my previous content helpful or this video helpful, definitely consider using my referral code when doing any purchases for Illuvium. I'll leave that in the pinned comments and that'd help me out a lot. Obviously with stage 3, it gets significantly harder compared to stage 2. It's definitely the biggest leap in difficulty. So this is the team I'm using, and you can see it's a progression of what we used in stage 2. We're going to have Slayer. Now Slayer happened to be tier 3, so it was easy to get. The other one would be Mystic at tier 2, but the reason we want to stick to tier 3 and below is because we can get all these materials from stage 1 and 2. This is relatively easy to build and we get Slayer from it, which is super strong. The tier 4 and 5 weapons require you to farm in stage 3, which is fine, but for the purpose of this video we're assuming we're on a bit of a budget and we're trying to get there with the minimal amount of effort and expenditure. So we did level the Revos and the Rotors all the way to a Gyro because Revo doesn't have Slayer. We need the Gyro for Slayer. We're still going to have the second Revo just because extra dust procs are good, and if we put this on the Ranger that gives us 2 Slayer. We're also still using our Predators. I'm just using the stage 2 still to highlight the strength of this team without it, but again, you could be using the stage 3s of these if you've leveled them, and you would be a lot stronger and you would have a lot more levels than this. So these are both very low level considering what we're doing. And same with the Gyro. The Gyro is only level 32, which is still quite low. You could easily get above that on all your Illuvials before you go to stage 3 if you want. Same with our Revo, low level. And we're using the Quinks for dust. We're just going to frontline him and put him next to the tank. I've chosen the Crunk just because if you do have the stage 3 Chukarul, which is the Chukundi, they're going to have Wildfire, and the Crunk on his own is very good. He's a mega, blinds and reduces damage as well. The last 2 Illuvials is going to be Vermillarena, I think it's called. Yeah, Vermillarena and the Tyru. So that gives us 3 fire and finishes the 4 rogues, and they give us Revenant, also finishes 3 air. We'll put that next to the Quinks because the little ones in Mega gives extra energy. So you can see that's pretty clean. We've still got Predator, we've got Slayer. I should say we're gonna put, you can easily build this tier 0 suit because you only need tier 0 materials. We're putting that on the Ranger as well just for a bit of extra strength, and yeah, that gives us the 2 Slayer. You'll see the Ranger is actually quite good. This weapon's quite good. Now I'll show you this one without consumables, but there's no reason not to use these tier 0 gumbo drops or even tier 1 and 2 or 3, but just to highlight the strength of this team, and also this isn't the hardest opponent. We'll do some harder rounds or harder encounters, and I'll be using consumables then. Start that up. So you can see a lot of good synergies. Revenant, if you didn't know, gives shields to everyone around the Revenant units when an Illuvial dies. So you'll see these shields popping off, which is quite strong. That's why we've got Revenant there. And we know what Slayer does, that's extra crit and attack speed. So it scales really well. See how quickly you do end up leveling. So again, these Illuvials are not as leveled as they otherwise should be. So you'll have more power when you level these. Show a second encounter, we'll just take down this ebb. So just remember with Slayer, when they land, they're getting more attack speed for the first 5 seconds. Going to be doing a lot of damage when they first land, and same with the Predators. They crit on their first attack and do an extra bonus damage on their first attack as well. So between that we can one-shot something pretty much, or kill it very early, which will go a long way. So in this case, there's nothing too valuable to take out, but it would be nice to take out the Winks and the Quinks. So I'm actually going to land this side. We should be able to take that out. Ranger there as well. Remember, we're buffing up the Ranger, and we'll put the Quinks at the front And I have my Revo on the other side just so the dust procs are kind of split across the board, because both the Gyro and the Revo are going to be proccing dust, and they will just spread that dust blind across the board. And we'll chuck the Vermiliorino there, and the Crunk, and remembering to put the little one next to the Quinks. And we can see 125 left over, so still not a super strong squad. The more mastery points you see at the top here when your team's down, that gives you an indication of the difference in power between your team and the opponent. Counter mods we can't see when we scan, so we're just going to have to deal with them as we come in. So it's not something you can really prepare for or dodge fights, but generally the ones you're going to be most concerned about is attack when they stack attack speed and damage buff in the same encounter, or physical resistance and heal per second can also be hard to deal with if they stack those, because they can kind of just become unkillable. But the encounter mods here aren't too bad. We're not going to use any consumables. You can see how quickly we killed that Quinks. And then every time someone or an Illuvial dies, our Slayers proc their attack speed buff again, and the Revenants proc the shield. So we definitely snowball every time we get a fresh kill, which is super nice. And we may only have the one tank, but we have the shields from Revenant, and we have the dust procs that are blinding the enemy and reducing their mega, so a good portion of the fight they're going to be blinded where their auto attacks aren't doing anything. You can see this team's a little bit harder. They've got a bit more mastery points left over, and they have their physical resist, which can counter us a little bit because we're all physical damage. Crit chance and attack speed both scale together quite well as well. And I'm just going to not use any consumables. Again, there is harder encounters than this, I would say, so you could save your consumables for that, but I would probably at least use the tier 0s on any fights like this. If you're in a stage 3 run, you're probably not going to want to risk losing. If you lose, you don't gain any experience and you can't catch any of the Illuvials that you might be after. But let's start this one up. Really good damage at the start. Again, that would be a lot more with those gumbo drops. And you'll see every time we kill an Illuvial, we gain a shield. There we go. And the range is quite good as well, for the ranger damage. So definitely use that battle suit. You might even have a stronger one than this. This is just the tier 0 battle suit. You can see his second damage. Super strong. Okay, I've tried to search for the hardest encounter I can find. This one looks like they've got a lot of good Illuvials. Hopefully they have some hard encounter mods. They do have the increased damage and crit chance, which scales quite well together. And they just have the Omni Vamp as well. So right here, I want to take out their Blazer Knight for sure. And so we're going to stack that side. Might just put the Revo this side, so again we spread out their dust procs to affect more of the board. And chuck them in the front there. And again we want the Predator procs to go down on the Blazer Knight. Good. You can see they have a lot more mastery points than those other encounters. So, and they have really strong Illuvials. They've got the Jotun, they've got the Blazer Knight, Revo, really good tanks. So I'm going to use some gumbo drops, and we're just using the weak tier 0, so you'll be using either the tier 0 at a minimum because they're free to get, but you'll probably have some tier 1, 2 or 3 consumables which are a lot better. And an encounter like this, if you really want the Illuvial, you're probably going to use them. Even if you feel like you can maybe win without it, you're probably not going to risk it. So I'm going to at least put these gumbo drops down on all the carries. And put the one on the Vermilior as well. So pretty much everyone has a gumbo drop, and then our Blotto, sorry, our Crunk and the Quinks are going to have the Florable, which is HP and resistances. They also got 5 Air, Nature, Empath, Bolt, Walk, Rogue. So the Blazer Knight died super quick. And our Crunk lived long enough to get his Omega off, so that's huge. And then these Revenant procs, just doing a lot of work. Ranger, let's see what damage. Quite as high this time, but
Yeah, so you can see a little bit closer than these other encounters that we've had. But, oh, are we going to win? Ranger Omega, not quite. Okay.
Nevertheless, you can see how close that was. You'll have more consumables, you'll have more experience, and potentially higher stages of those Illuvials. Those will increase your chances a lot, but even without all that, you could see how close it was. And that's about as hard as an encounter as you'll get. There is a chance of getting harder encounters than that. You know, that's up there with the encounter difficulty, which you can scan before to check, and maybe you'll avoid those fights, or maybe you invest more consumables into winning those fights. I hope that helps, guys. Remember to use my referral code if you're doing any purchases for Illuvium. That helps me out a lot. Definitely ask me anything down below if you have any questions, and we'll see you next time.